we'll start with his little metal feetsies, which is a popular thing in this community. A very questionable thing. Okay, so I finally decided to make the video for Blighted Springtrap. I was originally going to wait until Behavior fixed his head. Apparently, the model's head was just fine. It was the icon for Blighted Springtrap that had the head that was weird. I would have gone the other way and changed the model head, but Behavior is going to Behavior. I originally tried this in SFM. I couldn't really get it to work, and so I found this on Sketchfab, and I'll link the account where I found it in the description, so anyone who wants to can go and look at it for themselves. This model doesn't have his knife, so this will just be an analysis of Blighted Springtrap. This will be a very in-depth, very close in-depth inspection and analysis. So let's start with what the base for William Afton is. So if you don't know the FNAF lore, long story short, he's more or less an undead monster at this point. He's not. A lot of people think he's a corpse and he's haunting his own body. He's not. And he could still feel pain. You could see this in DBD. Every time you hit him with a pallet, he grunts. Every time he falls from heights, he grunts. He can still very much feel pain. That is something a corpse cannot do. He can also regenerate, which is a very common trait amongst a lot of undead creatures. In the novels, he gets freed from the suit and he regrows his body. It's not perfect, but he can do it. Scrap Trap, despite Scrap Trap's peanut head, he is a very important part of the Trap family. You see where William got one of the arms knocked off. You see he starts regrowing his arm bones, his skull, muscle starts coming through. It starts wrapping around the endoskeleton. Despite his unfavorable appearance, Scrap Trap is actually quite important. He shows just what William can do when he's able to regenerate. Now, Blighted Springtrap seems to be heavily inspired by Scrap Trap, or Dr. Scrap Trap, if you want to take into account the brain. And, Blighted Springtrap is probably at this point the closest we'll ever get to Scrap Trap, since Scrap Trap is missing an arm, and DBD, William Afton needs both of his. Let's start with the analysis. Like I said, this is in Sketchfab. This is the rendered version. I can't explain the colors or the lighting that the person chose for this render, but I will take it off to make it less distracting. I'm also a little sick, so let's start with everyone's favorite area, the feet. Now, purple lighting aside, this is a perfect example of Springtrap's regeneration ability being put into overdrive. So now, if anyone's wondering how we got here, if you're a FNAF fan and you're not into DBD lore, anything that's blighted, Blighted Nemesis, Blighted Springtrap, Blighted Wesker, has had the Blighted serum injected into them. Now, the Blighted serum is mutagenic, let's say. It seems to take properties from whatever it's injected into and put it into overdrive while mutating. So you can see Legion, Frank and Julie kind of got fused together by the Blighted serum. Chucky, almost kind of the same thing. Talbert, the actual Blight, seemed to suffer the worst of the side effects because it turned him into a monster that seems to quite enjoy banging his face against every surface he can find. But that's also, I believe, part of the entity's punishment for him trying to escape. I'm sure DBD lore nerds will correct me if I'm wrong on that one. So, when Springtrap was injected with the Blighted serum, it seemed to have exponentially increased his ability to regenerate to the point where it's actually starting to take over the metal. So, with the explanation of the Blighted serum out of the way, we'll start with his little metal feetsies. which is a popular thing in this community. A very questionable thing. So, let's see, which one do we want to... Let's start with his less regrown foot. So if you come up here towards the calf, you can see... I'll try to find a picture of Afton, the DBD Afton out of the suit. Because his legs are cut off about at the calf. You can see the bone regrowing in there. And it's starting to regrow down to remake the leg. Hasn't hit his left foot yet. Now, that's a little too close. His right foot is very, very interesting. So, you can see over here where these metal bars are. You can see where those are between the bones of his toes. So the bones aren't quite... They kind of are over here, but they're not quite growing around the metal over here. Like just making space in between. And then you can see where the muscle's starting to come down. You can see now here's where the bone kind of arcs up. It shouldn't, normally in a normal human, I don't think it does that. It should be flat, but it's arcing up because there's a big metal rod underneath. That's gotta be painful. Which is kind of Afton's life now. Yeah, so on the back side, see if I can't get the light. The back side, you can definitely see where the bones have completely regrown. You can see where the foot bones regrown and arcing up. Now, remember, he's missing both of his legs in his normal default form, so his entire leg and foot bone have regrown. Or bones. There's multiple. Muscles coming down, wrapping around metal, wrapping around bone. Oh, that's devastating. It's kind of... Ooh. You can see where his calf is starting to swell out. Now, for the metal... I don't know why I said it like that. For the metal cage braced the endoskeleton and the spring locks, I don't think the Blight serum did that. I think Springtrap did that himself. Because the way the muscle's regrowing, you can see how it's starting to bulge out around the metal. And I think just out of sheer pain, he started ripping those back. So the muscle would have more room. And it wouldn't be digging into, or he wouldn't start like growing around it, which would also be very unpleasant, I would imagine. Now, to anyone, again, from FNAF and don't know DVD, these pustules are from the Blight serum. Anything that's been infected by the Blight, or the Blight serum, is will start oozing and dripping Blight through pustules, which is what you see on his calf and up here. Oh, his left leg. It's strange because it seems a lot of the regrowth and mutation are happening on his right side, not his left. Because where his right leg is completely regrown down to the bone, the left one is taking its sweet time, just coming down. Oof. But we can see all the muscle starting to come back. Now, to anyone who is curious, I'll find a picture of Blighted Springtrap because this isn't an in-game render with all the effects and lights. The color of his skin indicates that it's alive. Uh, his default skin is kind of a brownish purple, kind of like a withered, mummified color. When it's red, that would signify blood flow, and it looks very moist. So we could say that the flesh is actually fully alive, and that's why it's also regrowing. Which also means there's probably a lot of nerve endings that are firing off, which would also explain why he started ripping the metal off because he's probably in a lot of pain. Now, the reason I equate Afton to an undead is if you ever seen vampires in movies, games, cartoons, whatever, when they first wake up from a long sleep, they typically look withered, mummified, until they start feeding, and then they kind of go back to their more appealing forms. Afton's clearly not a vampire, but he does seem to feed on negative emotions / the most popular idea of fear. And yes, in mythologies and legends, there are actual monsters that do feed on negativity and fear and things like that. It wouldn't be typically unique to Afton to be that kind of monster. Oh, his knees. His poor knees. His kneecaps have reformed. So that is quite painful to look at. His thighs, you can see kind of where Blight's starting to Blight pustules are starting to come in through his thighs, and they're starting to push against the cages too. More the left than the right. And then we get to his. Is there anything on the back? No. Okay. So we get to his hips. And, oof. You can see where you can see where the hip of the suit popped. Like that's yeah, both sides are bending outwards, and that one's already partially covered in flesh. Now you can see these blight pustules are particularly bad on his left side. Which looks incredibly painful. You can see his hip bone protruding here, and it's protruding particularly bad over here. And if you could see, kind of hard to see, that's the lower crest of your hip, and then you can see the muscle and like the tendon starting to regrow there. That's unfortunate. You can see the big pustule, blight pustules on his left ass cheek, while you can see kind of a carve out of the right. And I wonder if I would have to look at the original model, but I think I think he would have had to pull parts of the shell off to make room, or the pustules are growing where there is room. So this is the example of flesh that's alive. You could particularly see it in his upper body, where it's red and it's bloody, which means it is very much alive. It's also covered in more blight pustules. You can see his belly button. You can see all the muscles, the tendons, and ligaments coming through. It looks like he's been skinned alive. He's not just like a rotting, mummified, undead creature. He looks like somebody who was skinned alive. That's how fresh that flesh looks. All the way up to his pecs. Now, at a distance, you could see his spine curving in an S shape. Just follow the line. Springtrap might be the first robot cyborg to ever have like roboscoliosis, because his spine is going crazy. Look how it bends. That's interesting. He does have a weird like lopsided stand, his default, but it shouldn't be that. I don't think it's that egregious. It's hard to tell. I think it's met. Is it metal? I think it is. Either way, you can see whether it's metal or bone. You can see the muscles have already reattached to it. How it ended up this curved is a mystery. You can see the blight serum, which I'll give it to Talbert. He went right into the spine with that. Like, it's between two vertebrae. He nailed it. So, you see part of the animatronic suit. You see where it's literally bolted into his back. Actually, looking at it, it may have been the blight serum that. Yeah, it was probably the blight serum pushed and shoved his spine into this position, because it was already off center, because he always stood with a curve, and it just exacerbated it apparently, and gave him some kind of form of like robotic scoliosis, which is something I never thought I would say, but it's fascinating. The ribs, or I guess at one point they were actually the spring locks that just act like ribs now. See the beginning of the rib cage. They've been twisted and pulled. I would guess Springtrap probably did that himself. William did it himself. As the blight the blight serum made its way through his body, and started pushing all this to kind of relieve himself of some of the pain. He started pulling on the metal of the suit. And while we're at it, the shell has pretty much just kind of turned into, well, it's not even the shell anymore, if I believe. I never really go against Blighted Springtrap, so I never get to see it. I don't know if this is like a solid piece or like a cloth. Um, Either way, either the shell has pretty much deteriorated into nothing, or the shell has deteriorated and just left behind like the faux fur of the spring bonnie suit. And you can just see blood all over it too. Now, we can get into the most interesting part, which is his third arm. At first, when I first saw it, I thought maybe the Blight serum had kind of pulled a Legion, and maybe he was like regrowing one of his kids or something to his body, like Elizabeth or Evan or not Michael. We know it wouldn't be Michael. But it seems like getting a closer look. No, it's his arm. It's his. If I had to take a guess at what happened, what likely happened was the serum, especially in his chest and arm, his torso region, really kicked off his regeneration ability, and as you can see, he's kind of got a scrap trap thing going on where he's missing parts of both of his arms, and it kicked in the regeneration, but because there was already an arm coming out, the mutagenic properties of the Blight serum caused it to grow down instead. And it kind of reminds me of when Deadpool regenerates limbs. Because there's nothing robotic about this. Is full organic limb. Like, you can see the fat, the ligaments, the tissues, the bones. And it's technically, air quote, technically in connected correctly. Normally our arms kind of, the bicep, I believe, kind of tucks under your pectoral muscle, which the third arm is. It's coming out from beneath the pec, so it's technically in the correct. It's hard to explain. It's been a while since I had to take human anatomy. There should be a muscle. See, about here. Yeah, you can kind of see the curve here that comes down. I can't remember which muscle this is, but the underside would tug under it, and it does it. It's not coming out the correct way. Instead of coming out at an angle like our arm normally does, this thing kind of comes at a far down angle. So technically, muscle-wise, it's in the right position. It's coming down at the wrong angle, though. Now, the most interesting part are the fingers. Because the thumb is correct. Pinky finger is correct. The pointer finger is correct. The other two, the ring finger and the middle finger, something happened. He broke. It looks like he broke those two fingers, which would also explain why he's holding his hand to his chest. You ever really hurt yourself, especially in your hand? Your first instinct is to always bring it in and hold it close to your body. And on that point, it's also, as of right now, his only completely organic limb, which would also make it much weaker than his other two arms. And on that top is kind of like a weak spot, I would suppose, where it could be damaged a lot easier than it already is. So he seems to just want to keep it close. technically it's in the right area. As disturbing as it looks. Which, let's take a minute to realize behavior missed an opportunity to change his mori, which it's a legendary skin. It should have its own mori. They missed a chance to give him his own mori with his third arm. And the sharp teeth and the sharp claws, but we'll get to those. So moving from his little arm back to the back of his shoulders, we already have the Blight serum. You can see some of the machinery for the suit and endoskeleton, where he just grew around it. Wires are still coming out of it, which that has to be so painful. Not saying he didn't deserve it, but You can also see where bone is starting to come through. Yeah, you can see the muscles here. Now, yeah, so this is the back of his shoulder blades, I believe. Which have regrown, so his shoulder blades are back. Yeah, you can see the other shoulder blade kind of coming through right here. Then you have where the Blight serum went a little crazy and he regenerated way too much. Then we got Blight pustules on his right shoulder, the back of his arm. Now you can see on his upper body, the right side seems to be a little less regenerated. I believe it's about right here. And this goes back to Springtrap. I believe it was about right here. His original arm was cut off. So he grew it back a little bit, but the important part is the bones. I believe that's the ulna and the radius. They have grown from where they were cut off all the way down into his hand. And you can see they're kind of trying to fuse, I think, to the metal of his hand right here. But there's no flesh. Like, this is... He's legitimately just regrown an entire arm bones. Almost all the way down to the wrist. Now his his right hand. Now, an interesting thing about, and you see it with the feet too, are the sharp claws. You see it down there with his feet. It's harder to explain that. If I had to take a guess, he may have done it himself. If you take into account, like, the killers are part of their map, or they stay in their maps, he does have a workshop in the Freddy Fazbear map. He may have altered his own body using whatever the entity gave him in that workshop area. But at the same time, it also seems like his yeah, it's starting to blow out in his hand. Where you see this piston. His left hand. His left hand is you can see the regeneration in his left hand a lot better. Not only is the bone completely regrown, all the muscles regrown. Yeah, look at that. you can see where the Blight serum is just pushing through. Now, this is kind of a, I think more of a tribute to Burntrap, even though Burntrap wasn't William Afton. It did have kind of fleshy regrowth around the hand. And you definitely see it here where you see the bones. Metacarpals? I'm gonna take a guess. Either carpals or metacarpals. Said it's been a long time since I've taken human anatomy. But you can see the bones. They haven't regrown down here, but you can see the flesh. It's starting to overtake the metal around his wrist. It's starting to come down. You can see where it's starting to grow around the fingers. It's really difficult to look at. I think you see how it's starting to really come down, which I guess is how it progresses. It grows a base and then it starts forming over it with like these long tendrils of meat. So his arm, his back, and his neck. Now let's look at here. His neck. You can just see the blight serum just overrunning his chest, his neck. Okay, now let's get to the skull, which is part of Dr. Springtrap's appearance. So, I don't have the knife on this model, but it looks like he tried to split open the mask to get it off, which is understandable. It looks like he going back to the blighted serum's ability to mutate and enhance. I've seen a lot of comments saying, you know, his brain kind of inflated because he's so smart and he's like a evil genius. It could be, yes. Regardless, it looked like he was having some extreme issues with his brain popping out and pushing up against the spring Bonnie shell. So he tried to get it off. He seemed to break enough of it off so his brain can kind of push out through the back. See his brain stem kind of at the bottom. Now, see his skull, the muscles. You can see where muscle is starting to reattach to his jaw. He didn't seem to take much care in his eye. It looked like he gouged out his eye on the way. A lot of people say that the eye on the knife is his. I don't think it is. Springtrap is known for his eyes being his actual human eyes. You can see the veins in them, and they fit perfectly into his skull. I don't know what's going on over here with the other eye. Unless his human eye is behind there somewhere. Which is possible. It did, everything kind of got shoved in and his skull was kind of in the way when the spring locks went off. That, and if you don't know, I believe his human eyes are kind of a gray. Spring Bonnie's, depending on movie or game slash novel, are green. So it could be a reference to his eye, but I don't think the eye on the knife is his. It doesn't have the same color, and it's not a human eye, it's a animatronic eye. But you can see the muscle regrowing around his jaw, connecting his skull and his jaw. You can see his brain popping out. I believe it was the FNAF remodel where you could see the bar that I believe would have allowed Spring Bonnie's jaw to open and close along with the endo head. This goes all the way through, I believe, or it did. Yeah, you can see where it should have been connected on this side. But in his attempt to free his head, he seems to have just yanked that out. You can see where muscle and flesh are starting to regrow around the bar, kind of trapping his jaw in place again. And yeah, it's off center, so it seems like it's pushing, while this one is kind of repositioning itself to where it should be. This one is pulled out, it looks like. Now, interestingly enough, his skull is clearly a human skull that is mutating into something. I don't think it's quite rabbit-like. It's kind of getting to the position of rabbit teeth. If you look at a rabbit skull, the front teeth come out at a weird angle. At least on the top. The bottom, he's just going demon teeth. And he's got 2 rows of teeth. It could be a nod to like the endoskeleton mouth and then the shell mouth. But the second John here has definitely got gums. And he's missing a tooth. He's missing a single tooth. No, he's missing 2. 3. Hey, how many teeth are? 1, 2, 3. I think he's missing 4 teeth. I wonder. No tongue. You can see where it's all connecting. The gums, the teeth. So, if, the damage he did to his face is insane. If you, have read novels, or I believe it was Fazbear Frights. Or I don't know if it was Fazbear Frights, I think it was, once they destroyed the FNAF amalgamation, we got to see, William's soul for the first time. His soul is not human. His soul is a monstrous black skeletal rabbit thing. If you ever seen the alpha version of the rabbit from Ruin, Security Breach Ruin, that looks like Afton's soul, but his soul is black. It's very disconcerting. And it almost looks like his skull is trying to transform into that. It looks like his skull is trying to transform to match what his soul looks like, which is very disturbing. Man, Behavior does not deserve the art team that they have. This is fantastic. I think it shows all of the right aspects of Afton and what his body can do, except now his body is on like regeneration overdrive to the point where he's literally regenerating new limbs, which this isn't a limb that existed that he regenerated. It literally gave him a new limb. And on that part, let's just say again, behavior missed an opportunity with the claws. The claws, the sharp teeth, even his arm. Like, they could have switched up where he clawed you and then strangled you or pulled out your guts with his little arm or something. But overall, I think behavior nailed it. I'm sure Scott had plenty of say and Scott told them what he wanted. And to be clear, Scott has, again, mentioned how he isn't the best at human anatomy and human figures, and I don't blame him. That's a very, very, very difficult thing to actually do in 3D because we're used to seeing humans, so it's easy to screw them up. So having behavior bring something to life that he sees is amazing, in my opinion. I think he might have been trying to redeem Springtrap's inhuman, very off-putting design, and I think behavior nailed it. It shows exactly what Springtrap was trying to show, just on hyperdrive. His ability to regenerate, his ability to, essentially, if he wanted to, get pulled out of the suit and then go back to being a human. Although in the novels, when he went back to being human, everything didn't quite heal right, which again is also kind of shown by the Blight serum, how, yeah, it's healing, but it's not, or it's regenerating, but it's not regenerating the way it should, by the big Blight pustules everywhere, the arm. But overall, I think lore-wise, it's a great tribute to what William Afton can do. And if anyone else has anything to add to it, please comment down in the comments. Tell me your opinions, your theories. What do you wish they had added? What do you wish that behavior would add in the future? I know everyone was wanting a masked version of Yellow Rabbit to honor the movie. But, yeah, just let me know down in the comments.